Who's riding the tsunami wave into preseason game number 1 and ready to leave their mark today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome in, Chiefs Kingdom. Appreciate you being here. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen. And like, sub, hit the bell, do the things here on YouTube as well as all the audio platforms, which are free and available everywhere all the time, all day long. And you can get us there. You can get that much more on the text line at 816-357-8781. We are joined today, because it's Wednesday, by our old pal, the man on the beat, Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. Check him out there, as well as Chiefs Digest on YouTube. And 41 is the mic. We appreciate you being here with us. We're going to have a lot of fun today because it's starting to be actual football time. We're going to see this team in a matter of days. I, for one, am very excited about it. You have to speed up to get into the preseason. How is that going for this team as a whole? That's coming up later in the show. One guy in particular in the rookie class hasn't gotten enough press, but it's starting to come around on Jeffrey Bassa and the linebacker group. How do they look? That's coming up next. But we start. Momentum is everything. And there are some guys that are, I think, accelerating and riding that wave. There was just a tsunami in the Pacific. There's all kinds of warnings. So, Matt, if you're looking at who's riding that wave, who are you sitting out tsunami warning about right now in Chiefs camp?
Yeah, I mean, offensively, the guy who's probably gotten the most attention, if you're not talking about the Josh Simmons of the world and the focus on there, I mean, everybody seems to be most interested in Tyquan Thornton on the offensive side of the football. Obviously, there's a lot of roster spots in this team that are locked up. I haven't gone through and counted what I think are 95% locked up roster spots, but I mean, it's probably close to 40 at this point. I mean, it's just not that many competitive positions, and certainly not from a starting standpoint. So you're really talking about who's grinding out, trying to fight out for those last few roster spots. And Tyquan Thornton, outside the top 5 receivers, I mean, he's right now leading the pack. So when you calculate into it, hey, Hollywood Brown, will he be available in week 1? You don't know. Rashee Rice, is he going to be available in week 1 and beyond? You don't know. I think right now it's pretty confident that Tyquan Thornton is making this 53, but the preseason games will go a lot into determining that. And on the defensive side, I think the biggest question is still at the cornerback spot. And certainly some of it is even figuring out who your 2 and your 3 are. But even who your 4, 5, and 6, just figuring out all the names on down the depth chart, it's really getting confusing on that side of the football. And there's a lot of competition there, both from people that you know and people that maybe you're not as familiar with.
And I think it's interesting you talk about the cornerback group. We haven't even seen Christian Fulton yet. He hasn't practiced at all. Still don't know when he's going to practice. I guess he was on the sidelines doing the drills like most of the injured players today. But that's a big question, whether or not he's going to even get any snaps in the preseason at this point. You're 2 practices away from going to preseason game number 1. He obviously won't be playing in preseason game number 1. If he can't practice next week, I don't think he plays at all in the preseason, because I don't expect that they'll want him to play in week 3 if they're expecting him to have a bigger role. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, the window for Christian Fulton getting into a preseason game is closing pretty quickly. Because you'd probably want him at this point, even with a little bit of work during OTAs, you'd probably want him to at least have 2 weeks under his feet. And right now, I mean, that window is closing pretty quickly. So I don't know, especially it still looks like it's a day-to-day thing when Fulton might be back onto the field, at least just to get his feet wet. Right now, he's still on the PUP list. Not on the field doing any of the drills with the players, even just getting limited. So he's maybe going through individual or group drills. Not even talking about even 7-on-7 or team periods, much less. That's at least the first step for him. And we're not even to that point yet. So, and that's the challenge, because right now, Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt are going through trying to figure out the best rotation at that cornerback spot. And they really aren't getting, I think, any answers really right now. I mean, they know what Trent McDuffie is. They're still trying to get Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson to show them some consistency. There's clearly been, I think, some disappointment and frustration with Josh Williams, because he's pretty buried on the depth chart right now. Noel Williams is going to make this team, but how ready is he, for first team reps and for, being available during the regular season to have a consistent role? And then you got some young guys, Melvin Smith is probably at the top of the charts right now. And I haven't mentioned Chris Roland Wallace, and I'll be honest, it's because I don't know for sure where to mention Chris Roland Wallace, because he's playing corner and safety right now. And if anything, I would describe Chris Roland Wallace as a Chamari Connor backup. And that's probably the best way to kind of classify him right now.
That makes me nervous, to tell you the truth, because that leads down that discussion we always have in draft season. Is he a tweener in a negative sense, or a hybrid in the positive sense? I don't know what that tells me. I see him as a hybrid, but maybe the team doesn't. I hope that preseason game number 1, I feel he is a gamer and he raises his level when he's on the field, CRW does. So we'll see what he does there. But I want to go back for a second, because you mentioned one guy that I think, Matt, is kind of riding that wave. Maybe not Silver Surfer style, but he's making the most of it. That is Nazeeh Johnson. Today, out there getting time opposite Trent McDuffie when there's only 2 corners on the field. I did not expect to say that coming into this training camp. And while it is, as you said, temporary, and they're still trying to feel that out and get some consistency, are you as shocked as I am that Nazeeh Johnson's even in this position?
Yes and no. I mean, part of it's no, because I don't think that the Chiefs see the difference between Jalen Watson and Nazeeh Johnson as being that significant. If anything, I mean, I think that it might be that they feel like maybe one's better suited for certain situations than the other, because that does seem to be a little bit of the rotation is dependent upon what they're working on that day. But I still, at the same time, I don't see as much a discrepancy between Watson and Nazeeh as like Josh Williams, just because, Josh Williams is such a bigger corner than the other guys. So to me, I feel like, Nazeeh and Jalen are at least a little bit more competitive, and certainly in the sense that they've been more consistent than Josh has been. So, but has one really established themselves? Because Nazeeh will have good plays and he'll have some bad ones. Jalen Watson's the same way. And it's really the same conversation that we had last year. And I'm really interested to see when we do get a chance to talk to Dave Merritt, because Dave Merritt is always pretty candid. And I'll be interested to see if, he's just going to come out and say what we heard last year during training camp, which is that they want one of these guys to go out and win the job. And so far, nobody's doing that.
It's kind of crazy because, as I said earlier, Christian Fulton not practicing, and now you have to figure out what you're going to do with those two as well. When you thought maybe Fulton was going to come in and be a starter, so many different things to talk about. But when we get back, we're going to talk about the Jeff Bassa effect and a little bit about what he said during his pressers today. Right after this.
This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year because NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with fantasy football experience like they've never had before. This year, me and Locked On Chiefs are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should, whether you can or not, as a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league, like I've had one going 20-plus years on this platform. It pays to know what you're getting into, and they give you the best way of rolling their updates, your dynasty leagues all together in one spot. They're celebrating right now 28 years of fantasy football greatness. Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features in 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. Love the name. It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, with the lowest scoring team getting eliminated from the league each week until there's only one team left standing. This season, it's right around the corner, and now's time to get in the action together and try this new mode if you want to. Try out the classics if you're more inclined, or just play head-to-head in private matches, or you can just join a public league and see what happens. Stay tuned for more killer announcements as we start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now over at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Old Jeffrey Bassa. If you hadn't heard, right? He's just got that name that makes me think of, rocking chair on the porch kind of thing. This kid hasn't gotten much exposure because of the guys taken ahead of him, especially the top 3 draft selections in the last class have been, doing some things that are newsworthy, you might say. But I've had in the back of mind since he was selected, Matt, that this is a guy that could walk into this roster at the linebacker level and play and make this roster as a rookie, even in his draft selection spot on the 53. Now it looks like it's more and more leaning towards not just the rookie special teams role that we've seen others try to master, but in particular, I thought that as this evolution has gone with Drew Tranquill and his injury, this team in training, as we found out today, Jeffrey Bassa to play both Mike and Will, he's somebody that is going to be on the field maybe more than we expected from his level of the draft class, and maybe more than we really should count on for a rookie.
Yes and no. I mean, once again, I mean, it's always hard to tell what's going to happen in camp and how that translates into the regular season, and even during the preseason games and how it translates. It has been notable to me. I mean, just as far as figuring out the depth chart and where things are, like you mentioned, Drew Tranquill not being in there right now. That's opened up an opportunity for Jack Cochran, who stepped in for the Drew Tranquill in that role. So that really tells you who your top 4 linebackers are for the Chiefs. And then it gets into, I mean, Jeff Bassa is making this team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But how many linebackers are the Chiefs going to keep? I mean, is it going to be 5 or 6? And then when you get into, hey, if Bassa is the 5th, who's going to be the 6th? And, you got Cam Jones and Cole Christensen, who are both in the mix for that spot. Both of them, I mean, Cole Christensen's been on the practice squad in the past and has been a guy that they could bring up in an emergency for special teams, be around if they need a guy on the 53-2 for special teams and depth at linebacker. Bassa is interesting, though, because once again, you go back to our earlier conversation, Ryan, where you mentioned that, the positives of being a hybrid and the negatives of being a tweener. Jeff Bassa is that. I mean, he's a little too big to be a safety and a little too small to be a typical linebacker. And he described himself today as a Swiss Army knife, that he feels like he can do a little bit of everything, that he can be physical, that he can play pass coverage. The number one thing, and I don't think there's any doubt about this. I mean, the reason that Jeff Bassa is in the NFL is he's a really smart kid. I mean, he is really thoughtful about football. He studies a lot. He takes notes. He does all of these things. I mean, as a tweener, he probably has to do those things to be able to keep up and to especially probably playing linebacker, because he is kind of playing up a class, maybe a little bit, if you will, because some of these guys are a little bit bigger and stronger than he is. But I caution putting too much on him too early, because what I envision for Jeff Bassa in the first half of the season is kind of what the Chiefs do for their rookies. Probably not a lot of work on the defensive side. They might have very specific packages for him and are looking at him to really maybe make a bigger contribution in the second half when they want some reinforcements. But he's going to be a 4-phase special teams player off the bat. There's no doubt about that, because Dave Tope loves this kid. So he's going to get on the field and he's going to make a difference. I'll be interested to see just how quickly it is on the defensive side of the ball, though.
What I'm going to be really curious about, and you made a great point, Matt, when you start talking about tweeners and being a little bit too big for safety, I'm wondering if one of the reasons that they drafted him, obviously he can be a core special teamer. I think that's a great thing, and there's value there. But can he come in and play some of those third safety type roles that they've had safeties in the past at specific times? I'm not saying all the time, and play as a linebacker and give you a little bit more size to be better against the run. I do think that that's some place where they have continuously used safeties. I wonder if they look at maybe getting him on the field that way in specific situations.
Well, it's really interesting, because that's one thing that I've been noticing a lot has just been the way that Steve Spagnuolo has experimented with a lot of different guys and maybe some non-traditional roles. And I think I would fit Bassa into that category a little bit, because, yeah, I mean, I think he's got the ability. The Chiefs kind of love that dime linebacker. Always love the Dan Sorensens of the world, and that's probably what they wanted Dorian O'Daniel to be in their dreams. And Chamari Connor is like that a little bit,
yep.
And and even Justin Reid had a little bit in him. This guy's more of that. So yeah, I mean, could you see him playing some of that role that was maybe normally a safety playing the dime linebacker role, that maybe it's now a Jeff Bassa? I also think that they really like his maybe ability to do a little blitzes and be one of those guys as well, maybe a blitzing linebacker. And I think it is pretty notable that that they have got him playing at both Mike and Will, because one, I mean, obviously he's smart enough to play the Mike, and having another back up there behind Bolton and Tranquill is big, but his skill set does seem to best best fit the will position too. And I'll be interested to see, especially once he gets to step up against competition, because we really haven't got to see him, and depth with the twos and really not at all with the one. So I want to see what happens when he faces some stiffer competition.
Definitely speaking Ryan's language when you're talking about a blitzing linebacker.
Hey, right up my alley.
You can't play corner, safety, or linebacker for Spags without knowing how to blitz.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Tell me, Matt, though, with the way that this is going, the flip side of the coin is the injury to Tranquil. And I, for one, I know how I would approach this, but how concerned are you, or should we all be, about the linebacker group as a whole, knowing that right now it's Nick and Leo, and we know where Leo's strengths lie. They're not Will. And if Trank's not ready to go, I, for one, am not comfortable Jack Cochran being out there in any kind of significant situation. So what's your threat level right now on the linebackers?
It's interesting because I don't really dislike the Chiefs linebacker group. I mean, they've got some good experience. They've got some good young guys. And we didn't even mention it, and maybe it is worth mentioning. I mean, because you get the conversation about, okay, Bassa is going to be the fifth. Maybe, hey, Cole Christensen and Cam Jones have been around for a while. They're maybe battling for that sixth spot. Maybe it's a Cooper McDonald or a Brandon George. And I don't know if you feel better if one of those guys is the sixth guy. Brandon George is, a physical specimen, and he really was a dominant force during OTAs. He's been good in camp, but Cooper McDonald's been better. So those two are, I think, absolutely in the running as well. Maybe that gives you a little bit more of what you're looking for than you expect. But here's the other thing too, and especially you see this when Tranquil is not here. Again, it goes to, what are the Chiefs going to do? They're going to do what they do best, which is put a bunch of defensive backs on the field. So, yeah, if you don't have Drew Tranquil, are you more likely to have three safeties on the field? So maybe there's a third safety playing in that box as like that dime linebacker, maybe even more of just a plain linebacker than you normally think of. And then once again, just flat out a lot of dime coverage with just six linebackers and Nick Bolton out there.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Generally speaking, I think the Chiefs have mainly kept, 5 linebackers for the most part.
5 or 6 is pretty typical, yeah.
Yeah, 6 very rarely, but they have to have somebody really step up and to make a 6th, especially on this roster when you start talking about depth at other positions.
It's going to have to be.
There's going to be some difficult decisions because once again, you look at the depth and places that are and defensive backs and I say depth and questions because there's no slam dunk there. There's I think a lot of guys with a lot of upside, but I don't think you have a serious answer yet. You're probably going to keep 10 defensive backs and you're going to keep 6 linebackers probably. Now you're probably not keeping 10 defensive linemen, and that would be a tough one if you only keep 9, because then that puts guys like Felix Anadike Uzama on kind of the borderline, the Mendoza line, if you will, of the defensive line.
Well, we're going to talk Mendoza line because somebody has to step up to it. Who's that going to be is right after this. This is easy. Summer sports, they're in full swing, and when you're ready to get under those baseball lights, golf on the green, or take on that high-stakes soccer action, is that a thing? FanDuel's the best way to do it, no matter what. Even if you are the other football fan, they can make it that much more exciting. You're already in the flow of the action. Why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get into it right away. During it, while you're getting sunburned on the beach, you can be in the action. I've been using FanDuel forever to track my favorite matchups, keep it fresh with new daily promotions. They're fun ways to bet. There's fun ways to get into new sports, different sports, and things that you love already. Right now, if you're new to FanDuel, you're in the business because new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today and get over there at FanDuel.com to get started. This is where things start to turn. And we talk a lot about players and their fortunes and what they're doing. I want to take it from the other side now. This team is trying to go back to another championship run. They have to get ready starting Saturday for preseason game number 1. So, Matt, from your perspective, which position group has to speed up, has to get themselves motivated right now? Who's lagging as a position group in camp right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, my gut and observation says that it is a little bit of the defensive backfield and more of the corners than the safeties. I feel, even though, once again, I mean, the safety group is not super deep. I mean, but I would feel very comfortable with Mike Edwards as a fourth safety. And if that means, like, we're talking about, there's some other options too, but, hey, if a Chamari Connor is filling in as a fifth safety, or, there might even be, if the Chiefs keep 5-5, which I think it's probably more likely that they keep 6 corners and 4 safeties. But if they end up keeping a fifth safety, Glennon Miller is right now probably the one that's making the best pitch. I thought it, might be, and I'm blanking on the kid's name. I'm gonna have to pull up my roster real quick.
There's always one of those.
Because Glendon Miller is more of a strong safety in the box. Major Williams was the one I was thinking of, because the Chiefs don't have a ton of depth at free safety, and Major Williams is more there. But this week Glendon Miller's been getting more work, and and those are one of those guys again that you're going to be watching on Saturday in the preseason games. Is this another riser? Is this a Chris Roland Wallace, or is it a Devin Key? Someone who's been really impressive in camp and then gets into the preseason, and then it can go one way or the other. So I think there's a lot of pressure on that defensive backfield, especially even after you get past whomever the starters are. And I'll be interested to see who gets a lot of work with the twos, because I don't expect the ones to get a lot of work. I mean, offensively, the Chiefs offense, number one offense, took 6 snaps in the first game last year. So this is going to end up being a game for a lot of the backups. And it might be interesting whom the Chiefs consider backups, because they might be guys that some of you are considering as being key players.
I cannot wait for this preseason game, just because you finally get an idea of some of these guys. You talk about speeding up for the preseason, and I'm going to take this a little bit of a different route than Ryan did, but speed is the name of the game for the Chiefs wide receivers. And how does that play into this game? How do they show the speed on the field? Obviously, we're going to see Xavier Worthy on the field. We're going to see Tyquan Thornton. We won't see Hollywood Brown, most likely, it seems. But when you look at the things that the Chiefs have done throughout camp, it's always been focused on the deep ball. How do you think that plays into this preseason game with the speed that they have?
I mean, I don't even know. I don't know how much we'll see the deep ball. I mean, you might see, hey, if the offense plays 6 snaps, I mean, Mahomes might go out there and just throw 2 deep balls to see what happens. But, you're not going to see a ton of the first team offense. And so, I mean, I remember, hey, we remember Patrick and Tyreek, their first year together in the preseason game in Atlanta. So it can happen. But I'm thinking that with the first team offense, you're going to see pretty vanilla looks. So then you're going to get Gardner Minshew into the game with some backups, and Gardner's got an arm. There's no doubt about it. And he can be pretty crazy. But here's the thing, is that the backups wide receivers for the Chiefs don't have the same speed that the starters do. Yep. So and now you might have Tyquan Thornton out there, and Tyquan Thornton has got speed. He and Xavier Worthy could have a race to see who's the fastest, and it might change on a daily basis. But the guys who are going to get a lot of work after that, I mean, we'll see how much like a work like a Nico Remigio gets, which I think this is a big I mean, if you want to talk about like moments in this game and 2 players to watch to see how one can affect the other. If Rashard Smith has a great game in especially a great preseason for punt returns, it's going to put Nico Remigio in a world of hurt, because that's his one job that will get him onto the roster. Chiefs would love to have both those guys returning kicks, because remember, you got to have 2 deep guys back deep on kicks. But who's going to be your punt returner? If Rashard Smith wins that job, Nico probably doesn't have a job. But and like I said, getting back to the rest of that, the Chiefs offense and the backups, I mean, there's some guys I like there, like Magdalena and Jimmy Holiday have had good camps. You're probably going to see a lot of them. And Ryan, I don't know if you'll be happy about this, but remember last year, I think Tress Oladokin played more snaps than any Chiefs quarterback in the season opener. So you might see just a lot of Bailey Zappi on Saturday night. And
that'd make Ryan happy.
Well, I think
I'm here for 2 things. I'm here for 17 pulling out something crazy, because that's what I'm paying Gardner Minshew for, and I'm here for a nice positive thing, Bailey Zappi, to get out of the way.
You know me, I'm ride or die and have been with Chris Oladokun for years. So he's my backup for life. So I need him to be able to go out and do something too.
I hear you.
All this is just really exciting. And one of the other reasons that I really wanted to see a deep ball, especially from the first team offense, is just to see the offensive line play together, see them work in that type of skill set and that type of scenario. So really excited to see a Josh Simmons, who is probably, as you said, not going to get very many snaps on Saturday, but it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because we also haven't seen really any of the first line, especially like Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia, get any work with the second teams. And that's why I think it's probably unlikely, even though I'd love to see more than maybe 6 snaps from those guys. And maybe they do keep the offense out there, first team offense, longer, just so that they can get a look at those 2 players specifically. Because the Chiefs do want to know whether they have in Josh Simmons, and just make sure that it's not a camp mirage. But they need to know what and figure out what they've got in Kingsley, because remember, they didn't really test him during the preseason last year. And that kind of hurt him. I mean, now you're not always going to see a lot of exotic, defensive game planning, but I think the Chiefs would love to be able to just see how those two handle some extended game action. Don't know how they're going to work it out, but I think you want to get both those guys some, serious looks before you get to the regular season.
Yep.
That makes a ton of sense. It's all coming down this Saturday. We're going to have a preview for you on Friday. Don't you worry. We're going to have another show for you tomorrow. You can check out all of Matt's work at ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform. Don't miss 41 as the mic. Get over to where Chris is at KC Chiefs Corner. Check out my work at NFL 33 and RGR Football. We appreciate you being here with us, Matt. Setting us straight, even though if I get a little excited, I know you'll reel me in. I appreciate that.
Always here for you. I mean, but we'll always have Bailey Zappi versus Chris Oladokun fights. So,
all the Chiefs fans want to hear it.
Yeah, hey, we're here for you. While Patrick is having a hot dog on the sideline, we got something for you. Folks, thanks for being with us. We very much appreciate you. Have a good one. And